Okay, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the entire show today. Something happened about 10 minutes ago as I was coming downstairs to do the sheet. My son, who's home sick from school, my 14-year-old, oh, hang on, douchey hockey dad mode. My 2010. Actually, I want to get Zach aboard for this. Zach Phillips, hop on for this one because I want to see your reaction as well. You don't have these moments like I do. So here's what happened. As I was making my way downstairs with my little water bottle and my notes and getting ready for the show, going to talk about trades. Got the goalie round table. Carter Hutton's going to be here. Chris Mason's going to be aboard. Chat's always rocking. It's going to be fun. And I was stopped in my tracks, and I was made to feel very, very old by my 14-year-old / douchey hockey dad, 2010. So he's getting right into hockey now, like not just playing, but like getting into getting into the history of it. Like he's right into the World Juniors, watches tons of junior hockey, OHL highlights, always filling me in on, did you see what Michael Misa did? Did you see what Matthew Schaefer did? Like all of that, right? Like you're probably that kid too when you were 14 years old, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So he's sitting on the couch and he's on his phone and he says, "Hey Dad, is it true that Max Domi's dad played in the NHL?"
Oh, no.
Like, I don't feel old enough already, TJ. Thanks, bud. Welcome to the sheet. We'll see if I make it through December 19th. Here we go. Paul McCartney in a band before Wings? Max Domi have a dad that played in the NHL. Welcome to the program. Glad to have you aboard today. A little bit of a goalie panel coming up in a little bit, and a lot of clips to play for you as well. We're going to try to do a 360-degree look at the Kaapo Kakko trade. A couple of trades yesterday, as we all know. We'll talk about Nashville and Montreal getting together. We'll talk about Pierre-Olivier Joseph going back to Pittsburgh, which does, by the way, fit the MO. We'll just do it so quickly. That kind of fits the MO of what Kyle Dubas is going for. The second chance guys in that sweet spot of age around 23 to 25. See Glass, see Tomasino, and see Joseph as well. To which someone in Vegas, again, yesterday texted me after the deal. Wow, team brings brothers together to play on the same squad and then trades one right before Christmas. That's ruthless. Someone in Vegas really doesn't like when I refer to how they, and I say it as a compliment, do business as ruthless. But again, I do say it as a compliment. We have a few things to get to here. Topics coming up in a couple of moments. We'll get the sheet rundown here, and then we'll bring our guests aboard after we all have a whack at this pinata. Topics we'll be discussing today include the Kaapo Kakko trade, the Montreal-Nashville deal, and also, and this is a small thing, but I was going to do this in the intro, but then my son stopped me in my tracks. So I want to get this one in here really quickly. This is a clip from TNT last night. Chris Chelios on the panel being asked about 91 in the rafters. On TNT last night was the Red Wings and the Philadelphia Flyers, and part of the panel debate was this.
I mean, for me, it's hard to believe. He was such a great teammate. I was there for 2 of the cups with him. He won 3, but just the way he skated, he was stealth. He could carry the team. I played forward. Scotty put him back on defense. He was just a natural and such a great kid. In the locker room, no one worked harder than him. He's just, Again, not shocking it's not there yet, but I hope it gets in there. Sergei can get that jersey retired because he deserves it more
those
than anybody.
white Nike skates, Charlie.
He was
so
cool.
so silky.
He was stealth,
skating.
though. What a stride he had. Effortless. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Amazing.
The hair, everything.
3 cups.
You know, there's one thing that I always wonder about in hockey is who's the fastest backward skater? I can say with confidence in that era, the best backward skater wasn't a defenseman. It was Sergei Fedorov, who Scotty Bowman used to always say, if you wanted to play defense, probably could have been an all-star defenseman back there. He would put him on the point occasionally, as we all know. So here's the deal. Here's why his number hasn't been retired. It's quite simple. the Ilitch family has a real problem with Sergei Fedorov. And there's a couple of things. There was a Carolina offer sheet, $38 million, which was a CompuWare Little Caesars issue, beef between the Ilitches and the Karmanoses that wasn't just about the NHL. They were rivals in minor hockey. They were rivals in the Detroit area. Little Caesars and CompuWare ran rival programs. So there was that sidebar between Carolina and Detroit. But one of the big ones was one of the Detroit Red Wings. This would have been 2003. The Detroit Red Wings thought they had a deal with Sergei Fedorov, and instead he took a deal for less money to go to the Anaheim Ducks. And the Red Wings felt betrayed. But the one thing that I've always said about Fedorov with the Detroit Red Wings is never lose sight of the fact that he risked his life to defect. That was in the era where guys just don't get drafted and you have to pay off the KHL or pay off whomever to get the Russian kid into the program. He had to defect along with McGillney and along with Bure. These are people that put their lives and their families' health very much at risk. So I think we're all on the same page about this. Sergei Fedorov's number 91 should be raised to the rafters in Detroit, but that is that one not just sounds personal, but is personal between the Ilitch family and Sergei Fedorov. I'm waiting for that thaw. Will it ever happen? I mean, I think it's only... I don't want to say it's only a matter of time. I think it's a matter of public pressure as well. Like I think if enough Detroit Red Wings fans want it to happen and are vocal about it and don't let the issue drop, then I could see maybe, because there's like real hatred there, maybe they relent and we'll see number 91 to the rafters. Okay, in the meantime, Zach Phillips, let's begin with the Kaapo Kakko trade here. And, you know, this is one that's sort of been brewing for a long time. I don't think it was just about the statements that he made about Peter Laviolette scratching him. But Kaapo Kakko ends up with the Seattle Kraken. We'll get the Seattle side of things in a couple of moments. Will Borgen, defenseman on an expiring contract, goes the other way, a third and a sixth as well, to which... And I don't know whether it's just me, but I have a lot of snide people tweeting me all the time. And one manager tweeted, wow, between the Trouba trade and the Kakko trade, the Rangers sure have shored up their 6-7D. Ouch. 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 I look at this one a couple of ways here. One, this is very low risk for Seattle and could have some significant upside for him. From the Rangers' point of view, this is a player who has arbitration rights in the summer and then is 1 year away from being UFA. So those are the two motivations here. We know the Rangers need some help on the blue line with injuries and with depth. So that does make sense. A couple of people want to play clips from here that have a couple of different perspectives on it. which one are we going to start with today, Zach?
Let's start with Laz, because I think Laz has a more Ranger-centric, and then I want to go to the other side. They're both from Morning Cup of Hockey, so we'll preface that. It's both sides of Morning Cup of Hockey. But, you know, Jeff likes to
That's
steal
Vic's show. I'm just going to start calling it Vic's show.
Yeah, Vic's show.
Vic's show. Yeah.
Jeff likes to steal from the chat. I just like to steal from the show. I just take their content. Good. I think that's
take the people.
It's the best thing for us.
Right.
But this is what Laz had to say this morning after about the Kakko trade.
Listen, do I feel for Kakko with how this thing ended? Yes, but Kakko was the first one to talk about his performance. Like, he knows he needed to play better to earn more minutes and earn more ice time. And then he also felt that the communication was lacking going into this year and that he had to buy into his third line role. I spoke to him directly about it. So people that are disagreeing with me, I don't know what you're disagreeing with. We had the conversation. I wrote about it in a story last year. Peter Laviolette said, it's on me to find it with Kaapo Kakko. I couldn't find it with him, and that's on me. And Kaapo Kakko said about Peter Laviolette that they just, you know, they didn't have that eye-to-eye relationship, and it just affected where Kaapo was in the lineup.
Okay. And then we have Colby went off. Like, Colby's had a good week, a good couple of weeks for going off. Here's Colby Cohen on Morning Cup of Hockey, Vic's show, talking about this deal and the value of Kaapo Kakko at this point.
You didn't trade the second overall pick, right? You traded a guy with 330 games and 130 points and a guy struggling to get into the lineup. And
he's not struggling to get into the lineup. That's a stretch of a comment.
Sorry. Well, but listen, as of late, he was a scratch. Then he didn't play very much.
He was playing a perfect third line role for this team.
Okay.
But that's what he was.
So I rephrase it. Struggling to be a top 6 player in the National
Fair
Hockey
enough.
League. It just not really happening. And I see everybody, he's been mismanaged. He's been mismanaged. But it's just the reality is like eventually you get off your label, and your label is where you were drafted. Nobody cares about that anymore.
That's a really good point. They're not trading the second overall draft pick. They're trading Kaapo Kakko because we do have a better indication of who this player actually is. Sam Pollock, the legendary general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, used to always say, don't give up on a young player until you're 100% sure of who he is. And I'm guessing in the Rangers' mind, they are 100% sure of who Kaapo Kakko is. I want to grab a quick note here from the chat, which I think is a really important, and I just lost it, of course. Oh, here it is. From D. Early. Drury is not making trades that are not making the team better. He's making trades to move players, maybe to clear cap space for a bigger deal. It's interesting with the Nashville deal and the Rangers deal, because I don't think that this is a situation where Chris Drury trades Kaapo and says, well, that's it. I'm taking the rest of the week off at 11:59 Eastern today. We can't make moves anyway, so I'm putting my feet up and drinks are on me. I don't think that for 1 second. I think this is probably the beginning of I don't think a lot of other moves, but this is the beginning of other moves. And I think that with Nashville as well, with the Carrier deal, this is opening up space to do something else. Everybody suspects it's a center. Like any casual hockey observer who pays attention to Nashville for more than 5 minutes can figure out what the issue is there. So we all strongly suspect that is what Barry Trotz is doing with the Nashville Predators. Yes.
Jeff, can I ask you something about the Rangers one though here? Because I the Nashville one is a separate conveation. I would defer to you to hear about your opinion on it and stuff. Now, I don't disagree with what Colby is saying. Like, I fully understand. My only counterpoint is like, did his value not get to what it is because of not lack of development, but just handling of Kakko the last 2 weeks?
I'll say lack of development. All the things that I've been saying about the Buffalo Sabres, about lack of time in the American Hockey League, I will apply to Kaapo Kakko. But this isn't just exclusive to Kaapo Kakko with the New York Rangers as well. We all remember Vitaly Kravtsov and what happened there, and Elias Anderson and how things went south there as well with the New York Rangers. Kaapo Kakko is the name we're talking about right now, but this isn't exclusive just to him. I know I've been barking a lot about Buffalo, and I keep saying I'm going to stop talking about Buffalo and New York, and here we are again talking about both these teams. But again, show me the players that were hurt by spending time in the American Hockey League to develop. Yeah.
No, that's fair. But like, again, I guess kind of what I'm saying is like, that's the bigger issue, right? Like that's the precursor to why we got to this point. But do you think there's any credence to that? Like, why did this happen the last 2 weeks?
It's a great point too, because listen, I can recall, I think we all can, going into that draft, okay, and that was the 2019 draft, that was Vancouver. Going into that one, it was like the debate was legitimate. Who's going to be the better player, Jack Hughes or Kaapo Kakko? And we all had a lot of fun with Devils fans sending out the tweets last night about Vancouver and the New Jersey Devils take Jack Hughes. The Rangers fans are cheering. Yeah, that means but that's because he was so highly thought of. Like, he looked fantastic. As a matter of fact, I remember that summer when I was working with Elliot. We were at the NHL Players Tour. Then it was in Chicago. And we interviewed Henrik Lundqvist. And one of the first things I said to him is, how does the Kakko kid look? How does Kakko look? And he's like, this kid is fantastic. This kid's amazing. Like, he's got a lot of things to learn in the NHL, but this guy's going to be a star. This guy's like a fantastic player. You can already see it. And everybody was saying that. Now, I know the NHL is a tough league, and I know it's a really hard transition to get into the NHL and actually do something, but this guy was, I never want to say that someone is can't miss, because you can always miss. Things happen in your life. But this guy was looking like as can't miss as anybody in that draft. He was looking great somewhere along the way. And it wasn't as if he wasn't given chances, because he was put on some good lines and some lines up the lineup as well. It just never worked. Now, for the Seattle Kraken, I think you're thinking to yourself, okay, you know what? We did well with Daniel Sprong. You know what? We did well with Eli Tolvanen. Maybe, again, the arrogance of the GM, just get him into our program and we can find that player again, we can find the good player that's inside that those other organizations weren't able to unlock. Again, I look at it as low risk. I look at.
You want to know what our good buddy Wish said about it when he tweeted yesterday? I thought it was funny. I just thought about it right now.
What did he say?
Ron Francis acquiring a forward with strong underlying numbers, but little in the way of tangible offensive results makes me nostalgic for his time as Hurricanes GM. I just thought it was funny as you said that there. Yeah.
Every Tuesday with Greg Wyshynski. How's the chat handling this one, by the way? How's the chat taking this one?
Chat, kind of on either side here about just the handling of everything and wanting Kakko out and where they were at, and in terms of whether or not they were ready for him to move on and what the return was. I know that's the most vague answer that I could have given you right there, but that is that's the state of the chat, which I think is fair. I think that's kind of the state of everybody's opinions on this one right now.
All right, we're gonna get our guest aboard here coming up in a couple of minutes. Zach, let me know when the two goaltenders, Mason and Hutton, are aboard here. So a couple of things from today to go over as well. Today is the birthday for the NHL. On this day in 1917. There's also another birthday we're going to talk about. Actually, two other birthdays we're going to talk about here in a couple of seconds when our friends join us. Carrier for Justin Barron is an interesting one. And when we had Pierre Maguire on last week, you'll recall he talked about going to Laval a lot and seeing a lot of the defensemen for Laval and the guys that are close to being ready. This is a really smart move, I think, for the Montreal Canadiens, who really start to shore up and right-hand shot, more of a veteran, add some salary cap, but still to their team. I asked Pierre, we talked about it last week, and he's talked about the players that were close but not quite there yet, ready to take that jump. And I texted him this afternoon, and he said the closest guy is Logan Mailloux. He said if Reinbacher was not hurt, he'd be second best, both right shots. Logan could be playing in the NHL now. Only weakness is his down low coverage from the hash marks to the icing line and then to the slot. He'll be a good first pass defenseman, excellent second power play guy. For sure, I think Logan is being groomed properly by spending extra time in the American Hockey League. Smart move by Montreal to do this. So I know that it isn't a season. This isn't the season the Montreal Canadiens wanted. I think we all thought. Montreal thought, Kent, Marty, Jeff all thought that this was going to be a different year where they started to take more steps. Understand that things don't always go the way that you plan them, but there's still some good players and specifically defensemen on the horizon for the Montreal Canadiens. I think we're all sort of scratching our heads that, Carrier was just signed 5 minutes ago in July, as a matter of fact, and free agency opened by the Nashville Predators, and then he's moved. So this is not the last move from Barry Trotz, just as this is not the last move from Chris Drury, general manager of the New York Rangers. So let's bring the goalie panel aboard. We have Chris Mason from the Bag Chuckers podcast, which we're going to get to in a couple of seconds. And then we're going to welcome the birthday boy, Carter Hutton, aboard. Okay, first of all, Carter, you share birthdays with who?
With who? Someone tweeted at me today. Now it's I don't know who.
Will Borgen,
another player too.
Will Borgen.
No way, Willie.
Will Borgen, who was just traded, and I'm sure someone's told you this along the way. December 19th, 1917 was the first game in the NHL. You share a birthday with the National Hockey League. How does that make you feel, Carter? You did not know that. No one's ever told you?
Honestly, Jeff, I'm telling you, every time I have a conversation with you, you teach me something new. The other guy was Matt Stajan. Someone tweeted today.
Yes, Matt Stajan.
And I played with Will Borgen in Buffalo, so that's we never got to celebrate together. I don't want birthdays anymore. Mace, how you doing, my man? I know you're probably in the same boat as me.
Good, buddy.
I want to decline. I want to decline birthdays.
Yeah, we don't need them. Guys don't need them. But as far as I'm concerned, Carter Hutton is the NHL. Okay.
So. Yes, that's right. You share a birthday with the NHL. You are the NHL. Real quickly, Bag Chuckers, you and Hal Gill, Mace, and with that, I want to ask both you guys. I mean, everyone has their favorite defenseman they've always played with, a defender in front of them you're just brains are symbiote and everything works. Mace, we'll start with you. Your favorite defenseman to play with was who?
Well, you have a lot, and I think Hutz would kind of agree with me on the type of defenseman, and Skillsy's definitely one of those guys who just he wants to almost make the save more than you do, but you're like, buddy, just give me that one. That's an easy shot. I'm going to pad my stats here. So just let that one go, but you can take the backdoor one if you can, okay? Yeah. But no, Skillsy was definitely one of them. Jay McKee was another guy I played with in St. Louis. I just love playing with him because, especially guys, I think for goalies that were just deadly, penalty killers. I think you really like those guys. But my ultimate favorite, I think, would have to be Shea Weber because as Hutz knows, that guy can do it all. And he's a great guy off the ice too. He's just, he's the total package. So I'd have to put Fuffy, Shea Weber as number one.
I'm glad you mentioned Jay McKee, by the way. One of my favorite shot blockers of all time. Just
savage.
Wonderful coach of the Bulldogs in the OHL. Anyway, Hutz, your favorite defender to play with.
Yeah, we played for a few of the same guys, and obviously Shea's up there, right? The way he played. Who I love playing with, who's kind of a random thought, was Anton Volchenkov. He was with
another
us with
shot blocker. Another shot.
Every
shift, love shot blockers.
But he would come off and he would be just disheveled every shift. His hair was out. He had water on his visor. There's ice everywhere, and he was an absolute beauty. So I loved him. But I think my all-time favorite guy would have to be Jay Bomeister. Just getting a chance to play with him in St. Louis, the way that he just made the game so easy for me and predictable, and the way. And especially I like to handle the puck a lot too. So anytime he was on the ice, I made sure just to get it anywhere near him, and I knew it was getting skated out of the zone. And he's just, I think that unit I had in Nashville, I was so fortunate. And then in St. Louis that year, I was there the year after they got rid of me, and then Binnington came up, and that's when they won the cup. But that back end just made my life so easy.
Smooth skater. Okay, so the topic of the day is still the topic from last night, and the fumes sort of ride into today. Kaapo Kakko goes to the Seattle Kraken. Birthday boy Will Borgen, along with the NHL, and Carter Hutton goes the other way, a third and a sixth. Carter, we'll start with you. Your initial thoughts on this one from both teams' point of view.
I caught Kobe Zach this morning, talking about it and just what had gone on with Kakko. And the fact of the matter is, I had a chance to watch the Rangers firsthand. I was at the game on the weekend. I had my family in New York City. We watched them play the LA Kings. And the easiest way for me to describe that team was just disconnected. They just felt like there was just so much disconnection in their lineup and the way that they were playing, right? When I'm watching LA team, looked well groomed, right? They're reloading on forechecks. Every guy F2, they're reading off each other so well. And it just felt like there was a little bit of a lag, right? And we know how far that can go when it comes to the NHL. And when I watch Kaapo Kakko's game out there, he has the tools, he has the skill set. And I understand why he ended up getting, moved out of New York, in the sense of they know what he's capable of, but it doesn't seem to be working, right? And how long is it going to just wait on this? And I think it just got to a boiling point with the way things were going in New York. So I guess maybe that's my perspective from the way out. I still think he has a lot of potential, but at times, maybe it's a change of scenery that's really going to help this younger player who, when you go to the media and you say those kind of things, those are hard things to turn back from an organization, especially in a game where we still do honor the fact of it's a man's game, and what gets said behind closed doors usually stays there. So for him to go out and say that, I think at times is a little bit of shot at, the confidence the team has him and what he has, for the New York Rangers.
Chris?
Yeah, I think the Predators just played the Rangers, and I'm thinking about that game, and you have two teams kind of in similar situations. Obviously, the Rangers got off to a good start, but they've been struggling lately. And I'm sure you guys have covered all the drama around there. But I didn't even notice Kakko almost the entire game. They were playing hard, but like Hutz said, they were completely disconnected. They were working their butt off. They're chipping pucks in. They're shooting from everything. They had guys at the net. They were trying to do everything they could, but it just didn't connect. There was no great plays. There was no real synchronicity in their game. And for a guy like Kakko, those guys, they're goal scorers. I know he's on the third line right now, but at the end of the day, when you're a skill guy, that's something necessarily that's not going to sit with you right. And it's become obviously, I think, stale there. And, when you reach a certain point with a player that, was as highly touted as he was, and it hasn't really materialized. I think the best thing for both, and when you start making comments in the media, especially in New York, you get asked those questions every single day. It's different than playing in Nashville. As Hutz knows, you go to a big market in Buffalo and all those types, they're asking you every single day. That's the hot button topic. at all. So just get him out of there, get him a fresh start. They got a good, they addressed one of their other needs. They got a good D-man in him. And, so I think that it's probably the best thing for both. So hopefully he can rekindle, because the kid's full of talent. He's just, it's all up here right now, I think, for him.
Let me ask you about that game. One thing real quick of that Nashville-New York Ranger game. I'm going to just call him the Corsi monster. Luke Schen's 6 shots in 3 seconds was one of the
that was hilarious.
Weirdest, coolest, awesomest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, now they count them all. Now that would have counted for like 2 shots back in the day, Huts. But now that's like you can zoom. I was watching the game. I didn't even realize that covering the game, and I saw the replay quickly. I did not realize until the next day on social media. So thanks to X or whatever
Mace,
it is now.
That would have been one of those ones where we would come to the bench after and, we would talk about it, right? Like as goalie partners, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I'd be on the bench. You'd come and be like, he just had 4 shots on me and they gave me 1, right? That'd be one of the days where you'd be like, what the heck? You'd be like, and we'd vent to each other about it. So it's nice that it got caught and it got some play on social media. And for Luke Schenn, just padding his numbers. They're all on the backhand too.
And just pounding away at Shesterkin.
No goals.
It's funny you mentioned like complaining about shots too. So I don't want to say who the goalie is, but there was one goaltender that you guys both know in the Ontario Hockey League who was convinced that at home the official scorer was undercounting shots on net and it was affecting his save percentage. So what he did is he paid a kid $100 to actually sit there and count shots for him because he thought it was going to hurt his draft stock, that his save percentage wasn't high enough. So he paid a kid $100 every single game to get the real number of shots. Does that surprise you when you think about the nature of goaltenders, especially in their draft year?
No, I guess for me, Mace, sorry.
Carter, go ahead.
I think even sometimes there was times in the NHL where we had different arenas. I felt like, I don't know if you felt this way, Mace. You would go to a certain rink and you knew it was going to be shot night. It was like, man, I wish I played in this rink. I remember I felt like Doug Armstrong did that. I think he used to undermine us. I felt like there'd be nights where it's like I easy had 30 shots. At the end of the game, I had 24. Or I'd go watch another team play and they had so many shots, right? And it always was, because it mattered, right? I tried to like compartmentalize that part of my game, right? Because I felt when I was in the American League, I would watch stats and be like so worried about it. I'd be like calculating my save percentage while I'm trying to play a game. And I think it was so unhealthy for my development, but it is something that's so important. And as I matured, I learned to just, hey, what it is. But Mace, I'm sure you can touch on this, but in the NHL, I felt there were certain arenas where you got way more shots than you were given.
Oh, well, if you go into Florida, you're guaranteed 40 shots. Like it doesn't matter. Like they count everything. Like there's some that used to not count. Like if it was an icing or like from the other end and it was on net, it wouldn't count just because it's not a shot. So like goalies know, like if it's going to go on the net, now they go back and like they get all the hits, they get the face-offs, they get the goals. But it's like a guy like getting, I don't know, 17 goals or 20 goals. I mean, that's a huge difference. And every single goalie will know exactly what you're talking about because you know the shots on goal and you can't quite keep track of it. But that's a smart. What did the kid get compared to Jeff? I'd be interested.
Kid got $100.
What that kid got compared to the what was it?
Oh, $100, and there was always more shots. There was always
more shots. Exactly.
Always more shots.
But if you ask as a goalie, you're like, hey, like players go, I think I touched that. I should have got the assist on that. Okay, let me check the thing. Me and Huts go in there. I think I got 3 more shots. Remember that one icing in the second? Mace, get the hell out of here, you idiot.
Yeah.
But every goalie knows exactly what you're talking about for sure.
There's Jessica L in the chat says this happens with hits a lot too. Yes. Specifically with the New York Islanders. I'm sure both of you guys would go in there and say like Casey Cizikas would like look someone's way and get like credit for 3 hits. Clutterbuck would like bounce off a guy and that'd be like 4 hits. For whatever reason, they always love to fluff up the numbers there. The big picture when you look at the Kakko trade is, and you guys sort of touched on it as well, it's the New York Rangers and what is happening with the New York Rangers. This is not the way it was supposed to go. This is like, let me read a quote for you. This is from Vincent Trocheck. When he's asked about the recent trade. So Trouba was a big deal, as we all know, and that goes back to last summer. And now the Kaapo Kakko deal, and we suspect there are more on the horizon. This is what Vincent Trocheck had to say. I've been in the league for 12 years. I've seen a lot of trades happen. I've been on some really good teams where a few things happen, and I've been on some really bad teams where there's turnover, it seems like, every day. Obviously, for Cap and Jake as people, I love both those guys. You never want to see a friend go, but also, we're losing games right now. Chris Drury has a job. He just can't sit there and let us continue to lose and do nothing. His job is on the line as well. He's doing what he can do to put the right guys in the ice and make the right moves that he thinks are going to help us win hockey games. Yeah, it's sad, but at the same time, you've got to win hockey games if you want to keep everybody in this locker room. Chris, we'll start with you. As a player, does that statement from Trocheck resonate with you?
It does on two sides. It's because I can understand where they're coming from on both sides of the equation here. It's desperate measures when you get in a situation like the Rangers in a market like that. And, you have to make those kind of moves. But one thing that I didn't like about that whole situation is, when you sign somebody and, he's your captain and you give him your word that you're going to have a no move clause or whatever his situation was exactly. And he doesn't want to do it. And then you say, well, there's a way around this. We're going to put you on waivers, and then it's whoever takes you. It's up to the mercy of the waiver situation. I get it, but I also get why Drury's going to do that, because he's got to make moves. He needs to unload salary. He needs to, make a change if they want to go in a different direction. But I also feel, if you're in that situation, which Hutz will tell you, ownership, they're not always, men of their words. They'll tell you one thing, and then when the day comes when they're like, I know I told you this before, but we're in a tough situation, so you kind of got to go, and you kind of got to be a good team guy about it. It's not, his girlfriend is there, or his wife, I think, they have a life there. She's a doctor, all those types of things. So I understand where Drury is coming from. I understand the team wants to win. I get it, but I think it needs to be worked out the right way. I don't personally think that was the right way. Kakko's trade, trade him. If that's not working out, he's fully, accessible to be traded, make a change in that way. But I don't personally agree with the way the Trouba one, but that's just me.
Carter?
Yeah, I guess there's two sides of it, right? There's the fact of the matter. I think the way it was handled in the summer could have been better. It could have been laid out a little easier, or maybe Trouba decided to, he has that no movement. He's earned that right. But I always find it comical almost to the sense for you, Mace. And I know we've been through this. We've talked about it. Does GM put, no movement clause, and they find ways around it. They find ways to hose you out of it. But the other fact of the matter is, I think sometimes from the outside looking in, people don't realize there's like a human factor to it, right? I always joke around with younger kids at our goalie camps in the summer where they're like, oh, I traded for you on NHL 22 or whatever game they're playing. And I always laugh because it's like, it's not real life to the fans, right? It's just like, we're just like this commodity that comes and goes. And you touched on it there, Mace. You talked about your family. And I always remember that, like, Mace, we both bounced around in our careers. You had to kind of go where the work was, right? Especially for me, I always joked I was like an independent contractor. I was good enough to be there, but not good enough to stay, right? I always kind of got priced out by the younger guy coming. And then we'd move, right? And now you start a family and you have to get new pediatricians and all the things that come with it. But then on the other side of it, I get where Vince and Trocheck's coming from, right? This is the cross you bear. Like, we chose this lifestyle. We chose to be professional hockey players. This is what comes with it. And I always remember in San Jose, they had on the wall a mural saying, like, to those lots that is given, lots is expected, right? And I think that is something that hits home when Trocheck talks. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, if you're not going to win hockey games and what's expected of you, there's going to be changes and there's going to things that are going to come that are inconvenient to the group and to your friendships and what comes with it. But this is the life we chose. You chose to be a professional hockey player. If you're not going to get the job done, you're going to move on. And I think that's something I made peace with in my career, was the fact that I knew my name was getting scraped off and someone was, going to come in. But I agree with you, Mace. Sometimes what's said to your face and what actually goes on behind closed doors changes. And that, I guess, the side of the business that isn't the best part, but it's what comes with it.
In the movie The Godfather, we always hear the great line, make you an offer. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I'll make him an offer you can't refuse. That's the line. To me, the best line from The Godfather is kind of something that you just kind of quoted there, Carter, and that is, this is the business we chose. I always got to remind myself of this one. And then when it comes to, because it's interesting, Chris, like you mentioned, the Jacob Trouba situation wasn't handled properly. To me, I always find it, I don't like it when teams approach players to waive a no trade or a no move, because the offer is this: give me something in exchange for nothing. Do me a favor, but I won't do you a favor. And I think this one can be kind of solved quickly, and it's have to be negotiated in the CBA. But do you think situations like this would be a lot smoother if you could, and I know the NHL doesn't like money outside of the system, but for the good of the game and the health of the relationship between players and ownership, if you could compensate a player for waiving their no trade or no move, would a lot of these issues go away? Like, you go to Jacob Trouba, maybe it's a percentage of the contract, or maybe it's a fixed number. Maybe if it's a percentage, maybe you're arguing, or maybe I don't know how you massage it. But if you go to Jacob Trouba and say, look, we want you in the summer to waive your no move clause to go to Anaheim, and we're prepared to give you $1.5 million to do it, would that smooth things over? Because right now, all you're saying is, we want you to waive your no trade in exchange for nothing. That's not a business deal. That's, you give me charity and I'm going to benefit, because that's the proposition.
I personally, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I mean, that definitely would in that situation. Like, you know what, this sucks. I don't want to move. You know, I don't want to be where somebody doesn't want me in the first place. But if a guy's intent on staying there and he's got his life there and he wants to stay, and the GM signed a no move clause with this player, well, he should be able to stay there. I get there's a way around it, but that would definitely, you know, be a situation where, and you could do it so it's off the cap. It's like coaches aren't on the cap and all the extracurricular things. So it's a separate thing. It's like, if you waive your no move clause to go wherever, your no trade, or go off your 10-team list or whatever it is, here's what you get. You get $1 million. You get based on your salary, based on whatever, or it's a standard number. I mean, I definitely think that, you know, that's something. I was never good enough to ever earn a no trade or no move clause. But if I was, I'd be like, no, I don't want to go. But then they're like, well, you get $1 million or $1.5 million. I'd be like, let me think about that again. I might go off the 10 team and make it a 32 team list if you need to trade. I definitely
we might sandbag down and try to get on that list. They make a few extra bucks. I actually like this idea a lot, right? It obviously would have to be,
that's great.
But I guess maybe to play devil's advocate in the sense of like, if the GM signs a bad deal, right? Now he's paying for it. Now he has this opt-out clause. Well, what happens to the player when he signs an 8-year deal at like a Roman Josi deal? When I remember playing with Josi and he was making $4 million and he was like one of the best defensemen in the league. Can I circle back around and be like, you know, you made that mistake. I made a mistake. Where's my opt-out clause, right? So I get that. I know that's never going to happen, but there's always that side of it. And I do like the idea because I just think it's cleaner, right? I think there's a sense of, well, now we've made, I guess for Jacob Trouba, like if you know it's coming, you could kind of try to save face during this whole scenario. I think this could have been handled better just from a PR and just for the player, for the fans, through everybody. And I think that maybe grants the option, right? But again, I guess sometimes when I circle back to money all the time, it makes people from the outside looking in that just think we're like greedier than we are, right? Again, we talk about the All-Star game, giving out $1 million. And I have so many of my buddies be like, you have to get paid $1 million to come play in an All-Star game to try to get guys going, right? So there's always that happy medium of like optics, I guess, of it. If it's something, a little bit of a cap workaround you could do, I think it makes it interesting, that's for sure.
So Randy Workman in our chat says, Rangers handle the Trouba situation really bad. Why would players want to go there? My response is always, it's New York. Like you get a chance to live in New York and play with the Rangers. Can you explain if you agree with that? Can you guys, Chris, we'll start with you, the allure of playing in the Big Apple?
You want to play in those situations, and look, we touched on it I think before, where you understand where Drury's coming from. I don't necessarily love how that went down. I'm glad Trouba came out with it and you know, told all the details, because had he not, we don't necessarily know what goes down. And I think now in this day and age with all the media and the podcasts and everything, you get a lot more information that you wouldn't get back in the day. But you want to go to New York. I mean, it was done. It was done. You know, they wanted to move out the contract. They wanted to move on. They want to get younger. It's part of the business. We know, as Hut said, we would do it, you know, guys with concussions and all this kind of stuff. That's a whole different topic, but I'd do everything over again 1 million times, knowing all the risks, knowing all the stuff that you have to deal with, all the lies that are told to you, all the everything. This is something that anybody would do. And to your point, the allure of playing every single night in Madison Square Gardens, putting on, that's one of those jerseys. Like I remember putting on a Team Canada jersey, and I had like a reaction, like a physical, like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm putting on this jersey to play hockey and representing my country. That's that kind of jersey, with the history there, with the city, with the arena. I imagine you put on a jersey like that, you just have, that's even a dream upon a dream. So any player, they give the chance to go to the Rangers, and Hutz, like you probably heard of everybody, they treat you like you're everything. You have the best of everything. They're there to win Stanley Cups every year. And obviously now you have to develop, and you have to sometimes rebuild a little bit, like they might be right now, but that is one of the ultimate organizations. It's like a Canadian playing for the Leafs or whoever their favorite team is. That's the cream of the crop. So I don't think anybody, because of this situation, that'll deter them from going to the Rangers.
No, I don't think so, with that tradition and history there. And again, I think as a player, I don't think it's going to deter people from going there. There's always that ugly side of business, right? Especially the hockey side of it. And every team has a little bit of trades that went wrong or guys that went out. I think earlier in your career, maybe a funny story that comes up when we talk about this. I remember playing in the American League with Alex Stalock. He was my goalie partner. I was his backup. There was a year he got stepped on. He was out for a year. So we became good buddies. We used to joke around about, would you take a 10-year contract right now for $100,000 a year? And at that point, I believe I was making $45,000, right? Playing in the American League. And I was like, yeah, like, of course I would. That's unbelievable. Because I was this guy that just kind of made it, like, last minute. And I thought this was like 10 years at $100K. I was like, boys, I'm going to be like the richest guy in my neighborhood. And then looking back on it now, right? It's like, but I think it's all perspective and experience. And then as I start to grow, I'm like, I would play for any NHL team. I would go. And then all of a sudden now I have a few good years. I remember Mace. I think Mace was more of my agent when I left Nashville. I would talk to him all the time, being, trying to figure out where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. I went to St. Louis 2 years. And now all of a sudden, now I'm negotiating with Buffalo, and I have all these teams. And now I'm figuring out, what team's going to give me the best term? Where's the best to raise a family? And now I'm being all selective in this process. I think your perspective changes as you age too, as you earn the right to do that. But I think early in your career, majority of players, I know it's changed a little bit now. These younger guys are have a little more arrogance. I don't think arrogance is the right word, but confidence. And they're, they come right in and they don't have that fear of the NHL.
It's okay.
I guess so.
It's legit. Like there's, I don't say it's bad.
They've also got teams around them. Like they've got a management group instead of just an agent that it's a whole different world. Like we have no idea, Hutz. And it's like, it's a machine, I think now.
Yeah.
For sure, right? And when we stepped in, we were scared to step out of line. So I think it changes as you get older, for sure. That'd be my perspective of it.
Let me ask about one goaltender in specific. And Carter, this is someone that you played with in Buffalo. Right now, Linus Ullmark is like channeling the ghost of Terry Sawchuk. He has been phenomenal for the Ottawa Senators. And I think we've all looked at him and said, the skill is elite. I love his personality. There's so many things about him that I love his interviews. I love that thing that he does. Carter, you must have seen this a million times, where he gets on the ice and he does one push. He puts his head down and he just sort of coasts to the net. I'm sure I don't know why, but every time I see that, like I just giggle. I'm like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, I love this guy. Right now he's feeling it. The puck is a watermelon. It's a cantaloupe coming at him. He is seeing everything. You played with him, Hutz. I want both your thoughts on, and Carter, we'll start with you since you were a duo with him in Buffalo. Your thoughts on Linus Ullmark.
So I'm a big fan of Linus Ullmark. So I think the biggest roadblock in his career was just his off-ice being misunderstood. He's not your traditional hockey guy. He's a little bit quirky. And I feel like at times at Buffalo, when I signed in Buffalo, Jason Botterill, one of the main conversations was year one, I was going to play 50, 55 plus games. That was the plan. Protect Linus, help him out. And then I was going to help kind of get him into a starter. It never really worked out for Linus. I think just team in general there. But he was a quirky guy. He was a guy that said stuff at the wrong time and just didn't really understand total things to do on and off the rink, the yes and no's. And I think as he matured and as he got into it, I think the change of culture for him going to Boston, where he had that veteran pedigree of winners and, there's some non-negotiables in locker rooms like that compared to Buffalo, really helped him mature. His on-ice game was never in doubt. This was a goalie that I couldn't hold a candle to. And I would say this a lot of time. And I got to play with Pekka Rinne, who I think is one of the best goalies ever. I truly believe, I think Linus Ullmark manages a game better than Pekka, because I think at times Pekka could be busy and chases the game a little bit. So when he's busy, he almost like that feeds his fire. Where with Linus, this guy's edge work control, the way he reads the game is like effortless. So for me, I was always impressed because I'd get 14 shots in a game. Mace, I don't know how you were, but Jeff, I would lose 6, 7, 8 pounds, right? I would just be busy and I'd have to work and work and work. Where Linus, he just manages the game so well. And I think his progression in Ottawa, I saw coming in a sense of, there's a little bit of decompression, right? You sign that big contract, you move your family to a Canadian city, and now he's finding his game. And I think you're going to see a confident Ottawa Senators team with a goalie like that between the pipes for him. I don't know your read on that, Mace, but I love his game and I always have.
Well, it's funny that you say because that he's quirky, because I watched when he arrived in Ottawa, they showed him going, it was in the summer after he signed, he was going to meet the trainers and everybody. And he just seemed like a quirky, like kind of a funny guy. Like you like being around him. I mean, who knows? I don't know, but that was just my impression of him. So I'm like, I actually kind of like this guy. I didn't really know much about him, but you know, as a goaltender, you always think of a guy going from like Boston, right? Like that's where, if I'm a goalie and I want like a lot of wins, good success, the team that just knows how to play around you, Boston is the team. So my identifier of a goalie that's really good is like, okay, get outside of Boston and let's see if you can still play. And he went to Ottawa, and I think the team got off to a little bit of a slow start. There was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of guys that was Brady Tkachuk, a good leader, and all this kind of, you know how Canada is. You're finding things to talk about. Is Linus Ullmark the answer and all this kind of stuff? He's settled in now, and I think now you appreciate, especially with a team that's really struggled with goaltending being one of their X factors every single year. Yep. We don't have the goaltending. We got to get a guy. Let's get this guy in. All right, let's bring these. We'll have these two guys, and they'll battle. But now I think you're seeing, to Hut's point, and about the quietness of his game, but the efficiency, the power. He's one of those guys that he's always in the right spot. And you're talking about Pekka Rinne, a guy that he'd make the incredible save. He's a super athlete. I mean, there's not many people on the planet that can play like him. But, you put a guy like Linus Ullmark or UC Saros as a smaller guy, but guys that are so technical, they're always in the right spot. They make the game and the position look easy, which, as we know, it's the most difficult thing. And when I'm doing it, and like Hut said, you get 14, 15 shots, I'm mentally like, oh my God, I got to do this. I got to jump over here. I'm like, oh my God, I overcommitted on this. I got to dive back over here. But these guys, that's as a goaltender. And as you know, a goalie nerd, you just appreciate those guys because it's the way that they are able to anticipate, handle situations that maybe don't go so well. There's spatial awareness or where they are in the net and the crease. They just get up to the post and it's a half push here, half push there. But I think Ottawa, they definitely got a good one in Ullmark.
Yeah, that's interesting about a goalie's goalie. We always look at, I used to always look at Marian Hossa, for example, and go like, yeah, that's like a player's player. Like, the old saying, you can't give a great player a bad pass. We saw players throw pucks in Hossa's skates behind him, never break stride, took every pass. Like, just everything he did was like, he was like Lidstrom, but a winger, like perfect. Like everything was ideal, right? Who's that goaltender for you guys? Like goalies, goalie. One of the great things that I heard about, and I actually talked to Jake Allen about this, and he said, no, I never put on the Bruins jersey, but I was pretty close to it. But that's a line that I wouldn't cross. During the 2019 Stanley Cup final, Jake Allen, although Jordan Binnington was the guy that won the Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues, and Jake Allen was the backup, in practice, I mean, he was so proficient at mimicking the movement patterns of Tuukka Rask that he would play as Tuukka Rask in practice in order to give St. Louis Blues shooters an advantage, because in practice they were used to someone who was mimicking all those movement patterns. And when I heard that, I was like how good a goaltender do you have to be able to mimic someone like that, especially someone like Tuukka Rask? But when I say goalie's goalie, who comes to your mind? Because forward's forward is like Marian Hossa. Who's a goalie's goalie? Carter, we'll start with you.
I guess for me, and obviously I got a chance. Jake is a very smart goalie. I got a chance to play with him for a few years. And Jimmy Corsi was the goalie coach at the time. So a lot of times I would we'd have like sessions, Jimmy and Jake would be teaching me stuff about my game that I didn't even know. So that's how good he was at his. But for me, if I had to say a goalie's goalie, a guy I played against that I just think resembled everything I wanted to be and wasn't, was Carey Price. He was a guy that could just manage the crease. He was so efficient at times, but then he was so athletic too. He could kind of do it all. He was so well-rounded. I've always been a big fan of goalies, like guys that compete and are athletic, like Jonathan Quick. I love Marc-Andre Fleury, but a guy that when I would just get a chance to play against Carey Price or watch his game, how easy he made it look, and knowing how hard it was to actually do at the NHL level and to still have that athletic ability. So that would be the guy for me.
Well, one of the just as a quick aside, one of the things that I always admired about Carey Price is I never saw a goaltender put himself in position to be interfered with better than Carey Price. That's an art. Like you guys played now. It is a real art to be able to get into position to make it look like someone else has initiated contact on you. To me, Carey Price was like a Picasso at that one. Chris, your thoughts? Who is your goalie's goalie?
Well, I'll touch on Price. I think there's like certain guys that come along that like change the trajectory of what goaltending is. And I think Carey Price was one of those guys. He was so technical, yet like Hut said, he had the ability to get out of his structure, and he was just so calm. I think when he first came in the league, he's obviously a young guy right out of junior, went down, I think it was in Hamilton, won the, the American League Championship, and then came up and, he did some special things. That's rare as a goaltender to be able to come in and be able to handle that pressure, especially in a city like Montreal as a Canadian kid. I mean, there's not many people on the planet that can do what he did. And he changed, because I remember going home to skate every single summer. And that's kind of when the league started changing the way that you played goal. And I was going with some of the guys that he trained with. I trained with him in the summer a few times. It's always like, when you're down, and then it's all the edge work and all this kind of stuff. And then goalies became robotic after that. But Carey Price was never that. He had the ability to get out of there and make athletic saves. And, if he had to dive across, he could do that. But I would say that the goalie's goalie for me now would be, and this is maybe a little pro where I work now, but I think UC Saros is probably the most technical, perfect goaltender that I've ever seen. I'd put Andrei Vasilevsky in a different category, but a goalie that I saw that I was like, oh my God, I'm like, how does this guy that's as big as Vasilevsky able to be so composed, so technical, yet if he needs to get like Pekka Rinne or somebody that big, he can contort his body in ways that you've never seen before. It's just, there's certain guys that when you look at and they just blow your mind. But Saros is the other way, where it's not always spectacular. He's never out of a save. When a goal goes in, you're like, he could have had that. And then I go back and I watch the thing. I'm like, this is a backdoor play. It went off his defenseman. It went to the back door, and he almost got there, but it went off his glove. So you're like, he should have had that. So, and I get to see him every single day, and I think he's probably the most technically sound goalie that I've ever witnessed in the history of the game. Hutz, I don't know if you were there when he was there or not, but I remember seeing him training camp. I think you might have been there, because I just retired from Germany, came back, and I saw him in camp. I'm like, oh my God. I said, I wish I had to learn how to play goal like he did, because
that's why I ended up in St. Louis, Mace.
Well, Pex did that to me. That's why I ended up in St. Louis. Pex was going up, like, Mace, you're gone. We'll trade you in the summer or whatever. But anyway, he's my guy, just because I get to see him every night. So I really can't pick anyone else.
This is
you're not wrong there. He was something else.
The thing about him too is, we always focus on the size, or perhaps lack thereof. And the one point that someone made to me about Saros is, like, he legitimately has to make every save. When you're a large goaltender, a lot of, like, to be blunt, accidental saves happen just because you're big. UC Saros has to make every save. Like, there's no accidental saves for UC Saros. You look at, like, the save stat, like, he made all of them. There wasn't like, I'm just big and it went off my butt or my hip and I just happened to be large and it bounced off my. It's none of that. It's none of that for UC Saros.
Well, throw in the small goalie, Dustin Wolf. I saw that kid. I'm like,
great, right?
You know what? I'm like, this kid is got something. And there's gonna be, it's a copycat league. They're gonna go, because Hutz, this, you and I were about the same size. Saros is the same category as us. You went away from guys. You're like, okay, look at all these athletes. They're 6'3", they're this, they're that, and Jeff, to your point, like, pucks hit you, and these guys are incredible athletes, but Are you the best goalie? Are you overlooking a guy because he's 5'11" or 6 foot? And now you get a guy like Dustin Wolf, which, I heard a lot about this kid. I'm like, oh, how good can this kid be? And then I saw him live. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this kid, he's legit. He's legit. So there's other guys out there that are going to get opportunities because of him.
Real quick, we got about 30 seconds. Matt Murray's officially been called up by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Has not played a game of hockey going back to April 2023. Both of you guys are smiling because I know, you got back into the NHL. Final thought on Matt Murray. Carter, we'll start with you.
I love it. I'm a Thunder Bay boy. He's from Thunder Bay. We train in the summertime together. And I was on earlier this year on TSN at one point, and I went on a thing. I thought he's back, and it's the best I've seen him. He worked a lot on his mobility and his training, and I'm excited for him. He's a guy that has it between the ears. Now it's just a matter of physically being able to do it.
Chris?
I love second chances. These are great stories. No better market than Toronto when they got their thing going on. I'm cheering for Matt.
Oh, and he's playing against the Buffalo Sabres. Oh, just to add another log on the fire.
Tap in.
Storyline.
Or is it?
Guys, listen, thanks so much. Carter, enjoy your birthday that you share with the National Hockey League, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for parking time today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, boys. Chris, by the way, if you got 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yep.
Bag chuckers, you and Hal Gill, give me a fast 30 on bag chuckers.
Fast 30, we're just a couple of guys. We've been wanting to do it for a long time, but we needed to find a message. Our message is you go chuck your bags, you go enjoy life. We talk about a lot of the challenges of post-hockey career, all the stuff, all the guilt as fathers when we're away traveling on the road, what we do, how we manage all that stuff. So you guys have all the hockey stuff covered, but we've got all the post-hockey play and stuff and all the issues, as Hut said, the human side of things coming at you. So tune in. We're just kicking off. We're going to have some guests. We'll love to have both of you guys at one point once we get her going. So tune in if you can.
Awesome. Love it. Chris, Carter, thanks so much for stopping by. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Carter Hutton, the birthday boy, along with Chris Mason, Bag Checkers, a podcast very much looking forward to checking out. I can recall, speaking of that post-career life that you have, you always hear the stories about, they don't cheer when you take out the garbage, and that's what life's like. And here comes September, and I don't have a training camp to go to. I remember Brad May telling me once upon a time, what was the big difference for you? And he goes, and this happens to a lot of guys. He said, when I was playing, I'd be on the road, be 2:30 in the morning, couldn't sleep or just woke up. I'm going to order room service. I'll have a banana split. And when you're playing, no problem, because you're going to skate that off first thing in the morning. And he said, I'll try to do that when I'm retired, 2:30 in the morning, having a banana split. Yeah, it's sitting there and it's staying there. Looking forward to Bag Checkers, hearing that podcast. Chris Mason and Hal Gill, who, by the way, I've always maintained about Hal Gill, I don't know that I ever saw a better defender killing 5-on-3s than Hal Gill. Now, I know you may look at that and say, well, okay, so he's forced to be stationary as long as he doesn't move. No, it's not like that. There's an art to killing off a 5-on-3 when you're a defenseman, and I didn't see anyone better as far as wingspan and positioning and keeping guys away from the net better than Hal Gill. To me, he was the ultimate 5-on-3 penalty killer. Wingspan helped, of course, but I don't know that I saw a better 5-on-3 penalty killer than Hal Gill. Zach Phillips, as we wrap up another edition of the show, did we miss anything today? Are we leaving anything on the table? Anything happen over the course of the hour?
We pretty much got to all the news and everything that went down here today. The only thing I was going to bring up, Sean Avery, he's put his hat in the ring to coach the New York Rangers.
Yes, so have I. Let's hear this.
I'll put my hat in the ring.
Let's hear this.
I'd like to start by saying that I have put my name in the hat officially.
Okay.
For the head coach position of the New York Rangers. I have my staff.
Bridgeport.
I have my staff already contacted. We've worked out everything, responsibilities.
A couple responsibilities.
Do you want to leak? Do you want to leak who the
I'm actually
is,
thinking about having a co-head coach with Steve Ott.
Someone may want to mention that to the St. Louis Blues, but okay. I think it was
soft tampering.
Was it John? Very good. I think Laz last night tweeted out, like, is Sean Avery already running the New York Rangers?
I saw that. Is he in the office?
Woo! Too soon.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Today's the birthday of the NHL. First game in the NHL history was today. In 1917, first game where the Montreal Wanderers beating the Toronto Arenas 10-9. And then I think it was like not even a month later, the Wanderers arena burnt down, and then the team just folded. And Bert Lindsay was the first winning netminder, played for the Wanderers, and he is the father of Ted Lindsay, Terrible Ted, as we talked about retired numbers for the Detroit Red Wings to kick off today's program. That's how we wrap that one up and put a bow on it. What do you think about that one? What do you think about that one, Zach?
Ted's dad? Did he play in the NHL?
Yeah, it was Bert. Yeah, Ted Lindsay's dad.
No,
Bert.
I was calling
Bert
back
Lindsay.
to.
Oh, right, to my dad.
Your
Oh,
son.
God.
Come on, Jeff. Come on.
I'm trying to blank it out of my...
I'll do better.
Dad,
I'll do better.
Is it true that Max Domi's dad played in the NHL? Oh, my hip.
I'll do better.
Where's my cane? No. I should have been quicker on that one. Hey, that was a lot of fun with Chris Mason and Carter Hutton. You know, I like the idea of getting like two people to play the same positions, and certainly if they have overlap, and these guys clearly had overlap in both St. Louis and Nashville as well. The one thing we didn't get into with Carter, we can on another day, is the topic that I'm loath to talk about these days because I've done it too much, and that is the Buffalo Sabres. And like, I shouldn't believe in curses. I really shouldn't believe in curses at all, but like at a certain point, yeah, look at all the players that have gone elsewhere.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say goalie masks. I asked the chat what their favorite goalie masks were, Jeff.
How'd it go?
I got some responses.
How'd it go? We got a couple minutes quick.
I left it up to them. Yeah, I'll just give you these here.
Okay.
Johnny Red, Gilles Gratton.
Gilles
mask, he said.
Gilles Gratton. Gratuni the Looney is a great book. So he believed that he was a reincarnation of a Spanish conquistador, and once at George Bell Arena in the west end of Toronto, after a Toronto Toros practice in front of all the media, he went out on the ice, George Bell Arena, with nothing but his goalie skates to streak the crowd. Gilles Gratton. He had the great tiger mask when he played with the New York Rangers. Gratuni the Looney is what they called him. Gilles Gratton.
Obvious one here, which I thought of right away. Jeremiah Maxwell, Cujo, easy. Blaze Lipinski, deep cut pick. Atlanta Flames, Yves Mélanger, 78-79.
Yep.
Randy Workman.
Bouchard and Muir both had really good Atlanta Flames masks as well.
Randy Workman says, I'm going to say Jerry Cheevers with his stitches on his mask.
Yep.
John Davidson, D. Ely says, honestly, the John Davidson Lone Ranger mask was underrated. And
hang on. By the way, pause on that one. That mask is one of the most. He's right. One of the most underrated, seldom talked about masks. We think of the greats. We'll think of Gary Simmons and the Cobra and all that. But like that was one of the most underrated of all time. I'll give him that one. That's 100% true. We got any more quick?
Yeah, last one. I searched it up. I laughed. Brando Tolerari, Arturs Urbe. I looked at that helmet up.
Love Arturs Urbe.
that was another.
That's all I got. I don't know how safe that helmet was.
I don't know. I laughed. I was like, "Whoa!"
That helmet was, but nonetheless. Okay, listen. On behalf of Zach and my son, that made me feel very old today. Is it true that Max Domi's dad played in the NHL? Just a little bit, son. Thanks for joining me today. Sheet returns tomorrow. Tomorrow's Brian Burke Day, so get your questions ready, either in the chat or on Twitter or wherever. I already got a couple of DM questions for Brian Burke tomorrow. Last week was fantastic. One of the things that I'm not going to spoil it. I've had a couple of really interesting questions for Berkey. I don't want to put them out there yet in case someone runs and tells them, and then we don't get the authentic Berkey response. So we'll stay tuned for Brian Burke tomorrow, 3:00 Eastern, right here at our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Bye, everybody. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9:00 Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3:00 Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.